Hello all, today we're going to be talking about the Zenith. Vanu's mediocre all-rounded carbine. It's decent for what it is. If you need an Araxium, it's fine. You know what, it's a fine Araxium if you're going to go for Eclipse. Other than that, there's actually little reason to use this thing over any of the other carbines. At the end of the day, it feels like a slightly buffed up Solstice, and it's just okay. It's decent for what it is. Unfortunately, it did lose a lot out of what it used to be, as it was quite good pre-Arsenal, but now it's just kind of weird. It's still a decent carbine, but you can do better elsewhere. So it's a 723 at 143 carbine, which is a very weird rate of fire damage model to have. You have an atrocious velocity at 460 meters a second, mediocre reload speed at 2.5 long, 2.18 short, an ammunition size of 30 rounds, okay hipfire accuracy, decent aim accuracy, and, most noteworthy, 0.75 ADS. It's the only Vanu carbine that gets access to 0.75, and it's not enough to make up for the fact that other carbines are just better. It's not bad. It's simply outclassed. If you need a close quarters carbine, you're better off bringing something like a VX-6 TAC 7 or even a Horizon. If you want a long-range aim-down sights carbine, you're better off bringing a Pulsar C. It's not terrible, but it's nothing more than an Araxium for the Eclipse. So in the way of attachments, you've got your standard 1 to 4x, take a 1. Anything bigger is just not really worth it because the carbine isn't great in the long ranges, and Now, you do get a lot of options here in the barrel, and there are really kind of two ways you can play this thing. It's weird. We'll kind of get into how the two different builds. So I build it like an aim-down sights carbine. I run the compensator, I run the grip, I run high velocity. In the way of the barrel, the compensator is good if you're just going to go for inbound sights. The flash suppressor is a fine slot filler. The heavy barrel is garbage as usual. The short barrel's okay if you're going for the hipfire build, and the suppressor is just okay. I probably wouldn't run it though. Now, the heavy barrel, because people always seem to think, oh, well, it's good because it makes your bloom less. 0.75 is pretty much the only thing keeping this gun good, and cutting your aim speed is just throwing this thing away. Don't take heavy barrel. Don't take it on anything, but don't take it on 0.75 ADS weapons. In the rail, you've got access to quite a few attachments. I run the grip, as I mentioned, but the laser sight is fine for hip firing. I wouldn't take the angled, but if you really want that first shot reduction, you can take it. It's fine. Dark light is a throw, and the vented power core is also a throw. Rarely are you going to need to run out of 30 rounds in this thing, and the reload speed's already good enough as is, even if you do hit the long reload, and taking the recoil penalty simply isn't worth it. In general, I don't think the vented power core is worth it on anything, but it's really not worth it here on the Zenith. And for ammo, you get high velocity and unstable. You do not get soft point, and that's why I don't build this thing for hipfire. Unfortunately, without soft point, you do kind of just get outclassed, and you can't really leverage that soft point range that you would have otherwise. But instead, you get unstable. And it's... I wouldn't run it, but it's not the worst thing ever. If you can't headshot, it's fine. Because obviously you're just getting bigger bullets, and if you can't headshot anyway, it's basically just a free buff. But unstable ammo is a crutch that rewards shitty aim. It's not something that you should be learning to rely on. It's funny, don't get me wrong, but I really don't think it's worth your time, and I don't think it's worth learning, considering you're just getting punished if you have good aim. Better to learn how to aim properly and not need unstable than to rely on unstable to be competitive, but just get outgunned by pretty much everyone on the map. So, of course, jumping into some live play, it is currently... What time is it currently? It's currently 7:55 PM on Connery, and the server continues to die. We will do what we can to try and make good fights, so I can showcase this mediocre weapon off. Other than that, we'll just kind of figure out how things go, I guess. Of course, I joined combat into a fight that's 75-25. Well, I couldn't take care. I'm just going to pull a siphon, fly over to Root House. And I can talk about the Zenith on the way. This is what happens when you do these things live. So Zenith was a decent carbine. Admittedly, I will be totally honest in saying that I Araxiumed it prior to Arsenal. It's been a long time since I picked up the Zenith. Now, pre-Arsenal, it was decent because you could actually genuinely build it for hipfire or ADS. You had high velocity, you had soft point, and you had the advanced grip and the advanced laser. Nowadays, I think it got hurt quite badly by Arsenal, if I'm being totally honest. Ultimately, all the attachments that the gun gained aren't really strong or justifiable using. Unstable ammo, as I mentioned.
Your spirit of self-sacrifice is just too beautiful.
Don't mind the recursion voice tag. The hipfire accuracy is not that good, especially even running laser and short barrel, your DPS is still just kind of mediocre at best. And when aiming down sights, it's okay, and you do get 0.75 ADS, which is very much appreciated on this gun, don't get me wrong. But it still doesn't change the fact that in most situations, you'd just be better off bringing something else.
Area immediately.
You know, as I said at the start, if you want an aim-down sight carbine, just bring a Pulsar C. It's a lot more effective, and it does what the Zenith does a lot better. If you're trying to hipfire guns in close range, just bring a VX-6 or Horizon or a Serpent. They all put out way more damage, are easier to use, and are not quite as junk. It's not that the Zenith is bad. It's just that the Zenith is really, really outclassed. And I know I say this with a lot of guns on Vanu, and unfortunately that's just because it's the truth. Vanu have a lot of guns that are just okay, and unfortunately this means that the Zenith, like a lot of other Vanu rifles, is just filler. There's almost no reason to actually pick this carbine up and use it in any given situation over something else. As I mentioned, 0.75 ADS is a nice gimmick. Don't get me wrong, 0.75 is nice to have, and it will save you. But would I call it a reason to actually go ahead and pick the Zenith over any other carbine on Vanu? No. Even with the aim-down sight build, the recoil still feels a little wacky on it. It's pretty confused, because it feels like they've tried to set this up as a nice, varied carbine, where, you know, you can take hipfire build on it, or you can take aim-down sight build on it. But they didn't quite give it the time to kill, or the soft point ammo to make it a truly good hipfire carbine, and it doesn't really have the recoil pattern to work nicely as a mid-range 0.75 ADS option. It's confused, and for that reason, it's just not very good. It's not bad, but I can't really tell you that it's worth grabbing. Ultimately, for me, I legitimately only put the metal on this thing because I needed Eclipse at the time. And there were no other options. It was like the Solstice SF and the Solstice Burst, or the Prominence now as they call the SF. It's a filler carbine at the end of the day. It's not bad if you're really after the Solstice and you want a Solstice that isn't shit. It is admittedly better than the Solstice. It does feel like a straight upgrade on the Solstice. But in the realm of actually being an actual carbine that you'd want to play with on a regular basis, ouch. I can't recommend it. And you know what? We got 8 kills, and we're holding a 2.6, so I think that's a good place to call it. As I said, it's not a bad carbine. It's just outclassed, and it feels confused. The Pulsar C does it better for aiming down sights. The Horizon, Serpent, and VX-6 blow it out of the water and hip firing. 0.75 ADS is a nice gimmick, but the recoil pattern is still weird even with a full ADS build, and it's not really competitive at the range anyway because it's got relatively low damage output, and it's only a 143. When you're hip firing, you don't get soft point ammo, so unless you're doing some unstable memes, it's not that good, and even then, anyone who can hipfire headshot you just kills you. It's a filler carbine, and even nowadays, honestly, with how many Vanu carbines there are in the game now, I think you can safely skip it for Eclipse. Unless you really want to Araxium every single carbine available to this faction, there's not really a reason to pick up the Zenith anymore. Its role has just been superseded by other better carbines. You don't need an all-rounder, just pick something else. Thank you all, and I will see you all again another time. Bye.